Financial leadership is changing. CFOs no longer record history. They make history. This podcast will help you become a better leader, strategic thinker, and digital visionary. Welcome to Secrets of Rockstar CFOs, the ultimate podcast for chief financial officers. Follow along as Jack McCullough engages in exciting chats with accomplished CFOs, learning how they overcame obstacles and positioned their companies for the future. Here's your host, Jack McCullough.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Secrets of Rockstar CFOs. I'm your host, Jack McCullough. You can follow us online at rockstarcfos.com. Before we begin, I want to give a shout out to our two sponsors, Payhawk and Planful, who make this and all of our episodes possible. We have a great guest today, so let's get to it. Rock on. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Secrets of Rockstar CFOs. My name's Jack McCullough, and I'm your host. You can follow us online at rockstarcfos.com. We have a great guest today. I've been looking forward to talking to Simon for a while, so we're going to get into it. Simon Edwards is the CFO of a hot startup known as Conga. Simon, welcome to the Secrets of Rockstar CFOs.
Jack, thanks for having me. It's good to see you again.
Yeah, thanks. Good to see you too. And, I've been following Conga since you joined, really, but, not quite yet, and let's give it a year, but it's not exactly a household name just yet. So for our listeners who may not be familiar with us, can you give us the 10,000-foot view of the company?
Yeah, so Conga is a B2B SaaS provider. We're really the architects and leaders of revenue lifecycle management. So as you think about the ERP is where us, the CFOs, spend most of our time. The go-to-market team is spending a lot of their time in the CRM. There's a very fragmented systems landscape that exists between those two applications. What Conga is really designed and delivering for a lot of our customers is this notion of revenue lifecycle management, the unification of a lot of those systems that sit between those two applications, and really help customers deliver on the revenue advantage and really optimize a lot of their processes.
That's fantastic, and we'll get into it later, but it must be good to work for a company where you yourself are the customer. So, or the target customer or CFOs, I'm assuming, right?
That's exactly right. As I was thinking about my next role, I faced a lot of the pain points that Conga actually solves. And so it's great to be a champion of those solutions internally within Conga, and then also talk to a lot of my peers out in the industry about personal anecdotes and benefits I've received from using these systems.
Yeah, you're so credible to sales calls. I bet the team's tripping over themselves to get you on them. But before we get into that, I'd love to just talk a little about your early years. Where did you grow up?
So I grew up in a small farm town in Wales, so just outside of England. Definitely didn't see myself living in the Bay Area at a tech company, but had cows outside my window and spent a lot of time playing fields.
Good for you. So cool. So I'd love to get into, so when you were young and you, as you said, you couldn't have envisioned the journey that you'd end up into the San Francisco Bay Area, but you did start your career in business. And I'm curious, what was appealing about a potential career in business to the 17-year-old version of Simon Edwards?
Yeah, so I actually started my career as a software engineer. My undergraduate degree was very technical, computing for real-time systems, which was really around embedded systems, networking, and application design. A lot of foundations of kind of what we think about today as IoT and distributed networks. And so after graduating from that undergraduate program, I joined GE to work in their aerospace division on avionic equipment. So really was excited about the idea that software that I was developing or contributing to would ultimately help keep planes in the air. And that was my first job, and GE obviously has a ton of opportunity. Was a Fortune 10 company when I joined, and afforded me a lot of opportunity then to move and grow my career into more of a finance and business track.
Yeah, I mean, GE historically has always been synonymous with finance. So and it's an interesting thing because of my generation, most CFOs were CPAs. That was probably 90%. But right now, there's so many different paths to becoming a CFO, and a surprising number of former engineers or CFOs, and they bring a lot of the skills that the modern CFO needs, like the analytical mindset, the focus on problem solving, it isn't all about the debits and credits anymore. So do you think sort of starting off in a scientific type of field and then going over to finance is that something you'd recommend?
Yeah, I definitely. So first thing I tell people is just follow your passion. Always take the jobs that are going to really excite you. You think you're going to learn, you think you're going to grow, and you can add value to. So I think that's first and foremost. And then, yeah, I do think your ability to connect what's happening in the financial statements to what's happening within the operations of the company is of the utmost importance. And I think that's what truly can differentiate a CFO in terms of really becoming a strong operational partner to their peers and business leaders. And so to the extent you can do that through a technical track, through a sales track, through a marketing track, I think I'm somewhat agnostic there, but I do think having that operational bias can really differentiate a CFO in today's climate.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different types of CFOs, right? There's the strategic one, there's the finance one, there's the operational one, and it's just a matter of finding the company that values the particular skill set that you bring to it. Because there are companies out there that still want, I don't mean this to be derogatory about myself, but kind of the old school CFO, the person who's really good with numbers and financial reporting and whatnot. And then there's others that value the skill set that you bring. So it's really all about the fit, I think, in the modern financial world. So
are you saying I'm not good with numbers, Jack?
as an engineer, I assume you're terrible with numbers. So, but no, obviously you'd be pretty good with numbers. But it's a remarkable thing. Even how many Wall Street people make phenomenal CFOs when they make that type of switch, even though it's a completely different type of finance. So, horses for courses, as the saying goes. So
I think that's right.
So you had a 10-year run at GE, which again, one of the premier companies. It's iconic a company as it can be. I mean, it's Apple Computer, Disney, and GE. At one point they were probably the three best known companies in the world. But what was that like? How did you grow professionally? And when was there like a light bulb moment where you said, I want to sort of switch a little bit and be more on the financial side of the house?
Yeah, I think for me it was, I really enjoyed my engineering roles. And was fortunate to support a lot of business development and go-to-market activities in that capacity. And one thing I was amazed by was the strength of the business leaders that I was exposed to. And as I started learning about their tracks, a lot of them had an engineering background, but really were able to speak the language of GE, which was finance. And so for me, it was, with those role models in mind, how could I progress my career such that I was capable of becoming a business leader? And so that was, I think, the impetus for me to really look at what are the opportunities that I could see within GE. And at the time, there was a program called the Corporate Audit Staff that was able to take individuals from any business, any geography, any functional background, throw them into an audit context that was heavily business problem solving driven, and then rotate us through various GE businesses and different problem sets with different teams. And I think that exposure for me was kind of foundational in terms of defining me as a leader today.
No, yeah, that makes sense. GE is known, well, it's known for a lot of things, but one thing they're known for is sort of their mentorship capabilities and how the veterans, it's just baked in that the veterans are going to teach the less experienced employees how to excel and grow and thrive. And do any particular professionals stand out who were mentors to you during that career path?
Yeah, I've been very fortunate. I think, I had really tough clients who taught me a lot and pushed me to be better. So Jamie Mock, who's now the CFO of Moderna, comes to mind there, who really pushed us to not only identify problems in the audit capacity, but help inform him and his team on options for driving process improvements. So I think that was a foundational lesson for me. Khuzema Shipchandler, who's now the CEO of Twilio, great mentor and friend to me, really pushed me to push myself and my teams to continuously move the ball forward in terms of driving process improvements. Dan Simo, who's now an executive within Expedia, always taught me that kind of teams were really the foundation for my career, and to play it forward. Not only was I able to benefit from great mentors, but have hopefully become a good mentor and coach to a lot of my teams and help them on their career as well. So I think those are the types of lessons that I was able to learn from just great leaders.
Well, that's interesting. Jamie is actually going to be a guest on a future episode, so I'll have to ask him about you. So, but cool. And then you had a great 10-year run at GE, and then you went over to ServiceMax, and great company, but a very different one than GE. What was that like for you?
It was a great experience. I think, look, within GE, you have an infrastructure around you where it's very difficult to fail. And I think when I moved into ServiceMax, my team size was less than 10 when I joined, and there it was really roll your sleeves up and immediately see the impact of the decisions and the actions you can take on the actual overall business performance. And so we were able to successfully scale that organization. So, building a team around us was something that we spent time on, but I think it was really opened my eyes up to, the impact that you can have within a role in a smaller company. Yeah, I wouldn't trade it for the world.
That's great on ServiceMax, Simon. I just want to ask, so then you went to another great company, Conga, and I'm curious, what the decision process there was like. You worked with two great ones, and you had an opportunity for a third, but maybe you could have, you could have been very content and had a very fruitful career at either place, I would think.
Yeah, look, I'm really excited to be here at Conga, and I spent a lot of time thinking about what the right next opportunity was for me. If I think about kind of the decision criteria as I look at a role, it's number one, do I believe in the product? And as we talked a little bit about it earlier, the problems that Conga solve are directly problems that I faced in prior roles. And so I really see the need for business critical systems that can truly digitize and transform the enterprise. And I see that in Conga today. Second thing for me is kind of scale. As I think about ServiceMax being a lot smaller than GE, Conga is about 3 times the size of ServiceMax when I left, and I constantly am looking for what's that next set of problems that I can encounter in my own career, such that I can continue to grow. And I think part of that comes with scale and building teams and increasing levels of scale. And then the third is just team and culture. I have a great CEO, really look up to him and enjoy working for him. My peer group is, second to none. So have a great kind of network around me that I can lean on. And then the organization, the culture with which kind of the team shows up, very focused on customers, very focused on collaboration and winning together. And I think those are ingredients that, can stand any kind of macroeconomic backdrop and really enable, the company to be successful.
That's great. And I want to touch upon something you said, which your relationship with the CEO, I believe, is Noel, perhaps I'm mispronouncing it, Noel Goggin. And, there's been a lot of talk that the CEO-CFO relationship has actually become the most critical relationship. And by the way, it's the CEOs who are saying that, not the CFOs themselves. So there's, they view the CFO as the strategic partner, the most, the trusted advisor, the person that they talk to most. And so I'm curious what that dynamic is between you and Noel.
Yeah, so Noel grew up in Ireland and I grew up in Wales, and he likes to say that the only thing difference between an Irishman and a Welshman is that the Irish can swim. So we have a very similar cultural background there. And look, I think one thing that he and I talk a lot about is kind of what does that partnership look like? Where does he spike? Where do I spike? And how do we ultimately complement each other? I think a sign of a good meeting is only one of us is in there a lot of the times because we're filling in for the other's gaps or capacity. I think we have that today. He's an engineer by background as well, helped define this category that Conga sits in today, which is revenue lifecycle management. And just, to the extent that I can take things off his plate, I think it's well received.
Fantastic. So I want to chat a little about Conga, and because a fascinating company, but I think, you're probably, and companies are always at a pivotal stage, but you're probably at a pivotal stage of growth as a leader in the revenue lifecycle management game. And so what are your top priorities for driving the company's financial strategy and supporting its expansion and growth in the coming years?
Yeah, so maybe I kind of bucketize it into kind of the overall financial framework, talk a little bit about kind of what we're driving in the operations more broadly, and then in finance specifically, I think is how I think about it. And so number one, as I think about the financial framework, I feel really good about the operating model we have today. We're accelerating top line growth organically. We've got really best in class EBITDA margins. And so what we kind of spend a lot of time thinking through is, where do we make targeted investments to continue the momentum that we have in the business, whether that's entering new markets through deployment of sales team or partnerships, whether that's investing in organic R&D and new product introduction. And I think we spend a lot of time there. And then there's also an inorganic component to that as well. So spending a lot of time working with my peers and my team to really ensure that we're continuously updating that operating model. It's time well spent. Yeah. And the second is kind of, how do we help inform the operations of the business? I mentioned kind of that's my bias and background here. So again, it's really kind of double clicking now. So it's great to say that pipeline growth is X, but what does that mean? How do we continue to think about the conversion rates of that pipeline? Where are we winning? Where are we losing? How can we double down some of our bets? Having the finance team integrated into some of those operating processes and cadences enables us to be strong business partners. And so building out that business partnership group is super important for me. And then the third, I would say, is really then just kind of improving the back office operations of the business. So my remit spans legal, FP&A, and then also accounting. And so we're very focused on attracting, developing, and retaining great talent, digitizing processes wherever we can. And then with that great talent that we have within the organization, freeing up their capacity through digitized processes that enables them to focus on one and two.
Interesting. So cool. I wanted to chat. You mentioned you're good at attracting, retaining, and developing. And, that's a challenge for all CFOs, particularly the retention story, but probably no more so than in the space that you're in geographically in the industry. So any advice you can give, or maybe you don't want to give any advice because why help a competitor for the talent you're trying to keep? But, so sort of what's the secret sauce to keeping and retaining and motivating a great team?
Yeah, it's a great question, and something I spend a lot of time thinking about. I think, again, number one is culture. People want to work with a team and a collaborative environment where they can grow their career. And I think creating a culture where that's a foundational tenet is really important. Second, then I think is kind of just having the ability to grow your career at Conga. We have people on the FP&A team that came out of our accounting department. We're constantly thinking about how do we rotate folks through different roles and open them up to different challenges at a smaller scale than I experienced at GE, but definitely there. And then I think the third thing is kind of good talent attracts good talent. So making sure that we're able to deliver on our commitments to our team and have them be our best references as we're going out to hire new folks. I always welcome anyone that we're bringing into the organization to talk to people that have worked with me in the past, whether it's at the current company or prior companies, and let those references speak for themselves. And I think finally, Jack, I like to think of, me as being a rung on a much larger ladder for a lot of the people that work for me. And so whether they're able to continue their career at Conga or go on to continue to do great things at other companies, I think that's all part of the contract, the implicit contract that we have with them. And so being very open to how do we help each of those individuals continue their career, whether it's at my current company or a company in the future, I think is something I take a lot of time and effort around.
No, that's fantastic. And I noticed the website referred to something as the Conga way, and it was all about entrepreneurial spirit and collaboration and, customer focus at all costs. But with the Conga way, how does that affect you as a leader? Because my sense is they're not just words on a paper, that it's something that Conga generally believes in. So, how does that affect how you perform as a leader and your approach to decision making as well?
Yeah, I'd say it's at the heart of everything we do, right? So when we think about championing the customer, we're able to point to that as one of our core tenets within the Conga way and ensure that all the decisions we're making really are reinforcing that. It's easy to make short-term decisions that have financial benefit, maybe at the detriment of our customers. And so we're very focused on building a company that will be an enduring company, that will have longevity. And so things like the Conga way, it's embracing an entrepreneurial spirit, achieving together, championing the customer. Those are at the core of the decisions we make. And I'll tell you, we do a detailed full company talent review twice a year, where we look in the context of a 9-blocker at all the employees in the organization and make sure that not only is the what on track with our expectations, but also the how. And we make real talent decisions based on the how as much as the what.
Interesting. So that's fantastic. Clearly, it's worked for you. So I want to switch gears a little bit away from people, because there's the talent and technology, right? Those are the two T's people say. But digital strategy, every great CFO has a digital strategy. It's in the old days, it was just sort of approving the budget and whatnot, and they were focused only on finance and accounting type of stuff. But what are the things that you as a CFO and that other CFOs ought to be thinking of in terms of keeping up with key emerging technologies, and both in terms of internally how you use it in your team, but also how you use technologies to give yourself a competitive advantage in the marketplace? Because let's face it, it's a really competitive world right now.
Yeah, I totally agree. Look, I think, in the way that I think about digital transformation, for me, it comes down to simplifying your systems landscape and unifying around, to the extent possible, as few vendors as possible and as integrated systems as possible. That then gives you a much cleaner data architecture that underpins your entire infrastructure. And then on top of that, it makes analysis a lot easier to repeat and continue to move the ball forward. So I think a lot about that as kind of being very foundational to how we're driving technology strategy within Conga today. And I'd say, look, we eat our own dog food or drink our own champagne, depending on the analogy you want to use. But we are very focused on being customer zero for our own applications, right? And as I think about what our applications are able to do, something like we all faced a very kind of challenging inflationary environment over the past several years. Being able to query our contract library to understand where do we have price increase caps that are prohibitive, have that flow then directly into our CPQ and create line items automatically into renewal sales orders with our customers, and then have a document generation process that enables a much more seamless approval of those types of clauses, all within a single system and platform. That really gives us a competitive differentiation as it relates to moving quickly and connecting kind of business decisions with kind of how we're driving our commercial strategy. And so I think that's kind of foundational to why we think we can win, is that we're really leveraging our own technology that we sell to customers to deliver that advantage.
Yeah. And I would think, just with your background educationally and early career experiences, you probably bring a real strategic focus to technology in a way that, maybe some other CFOs don't. So do you think that your early career experiences have, made you more effective today?
At least in terms of solving these problems, yes. I think I bring my technology background with me to a lot of to the way I look at problems. And so I think that has worked well for me.
No, that's fantastic. So I have to ask you this question. If you didn't have an accent, do you think people would be able to tell that you're not a very good CFO?
I don't think people would take me as seriously as they maybe do today.
I kid. I asked Addie in advance if I could ask you that question. And we are going to throw it out, but I somehow I was watching the TV show Between Two Ferns. I don't know if you've seen it.
Yeah, with
he always asked like absurd questions, and the actor that played Doctor Strange, I forget his name, Benedict Cumberbatch.
Yeah.
They're having an interview, and he said, if not for the accent, people will tell you're a lousy actor. So I've been waiting for someone with an accent.
You should leave that in, because we make that joke a lot within Conga, so that'd resonate well.
Earlier, you spoke a little about, we spoke about the growth and everything else, and we're in a really complex economic time, more so than at any point in our careers. But a volatile economic environment, it creates both challenges and opportunities. So, what do you think of, what are some of the biggest challenges you'll be facing in the next few years? And I think volatility is now a way of life. I don't think it's a short-term thing. But, what are some of the challenges and what are some of the opportunities that it might be creating, if any?
Yeah, I 100% agree that volatility is here to stay, and the types of challenges that we will encounter, we may not have encountered in the past. And so being adaptable is kind of at the core of how we need to now operate. I think one, having just a growth mindset. We talked today about not what are the problems that we're facing, but instead, where are the opportunities we have? How do we overcome those opportunities to continue to move the ball forward? And I think having that mindset is so important. It's easy to point to what's not working, and it's a lot more productive to focus on how you can continue to make more things work, which is an important distinction. And then I think, look, no one knows kind of what the future will hold. So I do want to come back to this idea of having an operating model that's also resilient. We talked today about kind of profitability being the focus. Historically, in tech at least, it was growth at all costs, right? And having an operating model that has that right balance, that can allow you to move the dials in small increments either way, I think is really important. I think that allows you then to not subject the organization to wild swings as well, which can be difficult to overcome.
That's fantastic. So I want to switch gears a little bit because I understand there's been a recent addition to Team Edwards.
Yeah, speaking of volatility in business, we've had some volatility in our personal life as well. We have a 7-month baby, Olivia Rose Edwards, who joined us last October. And
what a pretty name! So
yeah, we actually used an app to figure out which name would be compatible with both of us. So similar to Tinder, we used an app called Kinder that allowed us to swipe left and right and find something that worked with both of us. My wife also works in finance, so it's very analytical.
Okay.
But Olivia's been a blessing for us.
So that's fantastic, Simon. One of the things I've observed with CFOs, one of their challenges is achieving the whole work-life balance thing. And, you've got you're full-time CFO at a great company, rapidly growing, great relationship across the C-suite and your boss. And I know you work as a startup advisor as well, and plus husband and father. What's your secret to achieving work-life balance?
Yeah, it's a great question. Look, I again had a great mentor that told me that you can really kind of do 5 things very well in life. And so spending a lot of time thinking about what are the 5 roles that I have within my life. One is, my job. Second is being a great husband. Third is being a great dad. And then making trade-offs, right? I think if you try and do too much, you kind of sometimes don't do anything well. So I'm very focused on what are the things that I want to spend my time on, what am I not going to spend my time on, but then making sure that I'm all in on those priorities and giving it my all in. Right now, kind of being a great dad is kind of top of that list.
So Simon, one of the favorite questions I like to ask my guests on this podcast, and it's because I'm trying to change the stereotype of financial people as kind of, not less than interesting. And so I like to ask people, do they have like a go-to joke or a fun fact or just, maybe a hobby that is surprising to people?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I don't know if it's going to change the perception of CFOs here, but I'll give you a tidbit, Jack. I've torn my ACL twice.
Ooh.
Once on a skateboard and the other time on a golf course. So the full story is good for another time here, but I'll leave you with that little tidbit.
Was it the same ACL?
It was the same ACL.
Okay. Yeah, that's I'm not a golfer, but I'm just trying to imagine. Hopefully, the skateboard one must have been first, right?
It was.
I was going to say, if you've never previously been injured and get to ACL golfing, I'm not a golfer, but you're probably doing something wrong with that. So,
well, it probably explains why I'm not a very good golfer.
It could well be. Well, it's an interesting fact. I wouldn't quite call that a fun fact that you've dealt with 2 major injuries, but no, that's great. So, and I also like to conclude, Simon, do you have any advice for the next generation of CFOs? Just things that they can be thinking about, whether they're in their first ever CFO job or they think that they're on a path to becoming a CFO.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. So the broad advice I'd give is play to your strengths and don't over index on kind of your weaknesses or opportunities, and then really spend time with the team. I think that has been the most rewarding part of my career, and I think it's easily overlooked as you're trying to accomplish your own successes in your career. But I think the more people I talk to, the more they look back as kind of developing the next generation of leaders as being something that they're most proud of.
Thanks again to Payhawk and Planful for their support of the Secrets of Rockstar CFOs. Rock on!
Thank you for listening to this episode. To continue your exploration of this role that focuses on strategy, leadership, finance, and technology, listen to more episodes of the show at rockstarcfos.com. Join this revolution, episode by episode. Push yourself to achieve great things and unlock the best opportunities available to you. CFOs are creating a legacy, and it's time for you to leave your own unique imprint on the world today. That's all for now. See you on the next one.